Hello, I'm Janet Morana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to our program. And of course, now with this election cycle, abortion is in the media. And I have to say, I'm happy that they're talking about abortion because I can remember in past elections to get them to utter the word abortion was a big task. But the problem is the Democrats are lying about abortion. They're one lie after the next. Why? They're calling it a safe and simple procedure. They're saying it's women's reproductive rights, good health care. Well, joining me today is one of the women from Silent No More, and she is going to tell you what happened in her abortion and why it's not good health care for women. So welcome, Ashley Steinhauer, to the program.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just very honored to be here today. Thank you for
And
having me.
happy to have you. And so take us back, Ashley. I think you were 18 in college. Tell us, what were the circumstances that made you decide to have an abortion?
Well, obviously, two of them that you mentioned already, I was 18 and I was in college. Obviously, financially, I did not have a really firm footing. I was entering into college, so it's not like I had a full-time job or anything like that. And, I was a very different person then. So I immediately thought about, well, first of all, I was afraid. I mean, fear was the first thing that entered. And then I thought about, oh my gosh, how is this going to affect my future? How am I going to, I wasn't even fully taking care of myself in the sense of finances. How am I going to take care of a child? How am I going to take care of another human and finish school? And I looked at it as, tunnel vision, unfortunately, and immediately decided that I needed to do something. As I always say, it's horrible to even think, but do something about my problem, and I just reacted out of fear. I didn't feel like I had a good social support in the sense of that. And so, I started researching, and a friend of mine, she helped me, and I found a facility that I could go to take care of what I thought then was a problem rather than a precious human life.
Well, actually, you had your abortion in a gynecologist's office. Tell us about that.
So basically, it was similar to the stories that I've heard before from Planned Parenthood facilities, but this particular day, I guess that was the abortion day of the week. And when I arrived, there was no pre-medical counseling. There was no questions. There was nothing. No support, no information. I signed in. I, of course, had made an appointment prior to that. So they called in a medication for me to take, one pill before going, just, to help me relax, I guess. In my opinion, it was to help me continue on with the decision that I made, honestly. But when I got there, I signed in, and a few moments later, they called me back. This particular physician, he spoke, he had a very, very heavy accent. There was no introduction. He walked into the room and immediately inserted the ultrasound probe just to ensure that I was pregnant. That was basically the only medical care that I received before the actual procedure. And, there was a nurse there standing next to me. I remember I was in there by myself. A friend of mine had brought me, but it was just him confirming that there was a baby there. The only words I remember him saying was, "Oh, look, there it is." And unfortunately, I did look at the screen just out of reaction, and I saw my baby. And then before I knew it, before I could even say anything, it was over.
Wow. And and when you think about it, because I know you're a nurse now, so you know a lot more information.
Mhm.
The procedure you had is the same as like when sometimes women need to have a D&C after a
Absolutely.
miscarriage, or they'll have a D&C if they have extremely heavy periods. That's
Mhm.
done in a hospital. And
Correct.
so you have the same procedure in an office, right? I mean, and so immediately following, how much soon after that did they just have you leave the office? Any follow-up care? I mean, what happened?
So, no, not at all. And it's interesting you say that. It is exactly the same procedure as when you have a D&C, whether it's for miscarriage, whether it's for, heavy bleeding, any of those things. And what is very sad is, after my abortion, I had scarring to my uterus. So the first three times, years later when I got married, the first three times that I got pregnant, I actually I had three miscarriages. So two of those times I had to go to a hospital, have anesthesia, and have the exact same thing performed, but in a completely different circumstance. There's consents, there's obviously anesthesia. It's an operating room facility to ensure safe care. It's completely opposite of what happens in these abortion clinics, or even that particular GYN facility, for that matter. But for me, there was absolutely no follow-up care. I don't even recall a phone call. I had to stay there for 30 minutes after, just to, I guess, make sure there was no hemorrhaging or anything of that nature. And then we left. I mean, I did get a prescription for a couple of pills, Cytotec, which is what they give women when they're, trying to induce labor when you're having your baby. But they gave me that is supposed to decrease bleeding. But aside from that was it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Mhm.
So, and in your case, is what happens to a lot of women is the initial reason they're having the abortion is because nobody is offering them real choice. They're afraid. How am I going to do this all by myself? I'm sure if they had told you about a pregnancy help center that would come alongside you and give you the support you needed, well, maybe you would have made a different decision. But the other side talks about this as being freedom of choice. Excuse me, reproductive health. It's not healthcare, and it's not choice, because they're taking advantage of a woman when she's very vulnerable and scared, and
Right.
playing into that. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the thing is they're getting to you at your most vulnerable state. How many times do we, whatever the situation is, when you are, hit with extreme fear, we're not responding, we're reacting. And so we're trying to figure out what makes me feel the safest in this particular environment. And most of the time it's not safe in the sense of your health is safe, your body's safe. It's our emotions that we want to feel safe. We want to feel like, okay, this just goes away. Nobody knows. There's no shame. There's no guilt. There's no repercussions, depending upon what your parents might say or do. And honestly, I do feel like it's more difficult for young women who are really involved in the church. It's opposite of what I think a lot of people would think, because those people feel like they're going to be judged even more because they're supposed to be living this, perfect life. You're supposed to be good. You're supposed to do everything in order. And so it seems like this rescue approach, and unfortunately it's not the case. That, I often say, I don't look at it as free choice at all. To me, it felt like immediate, entry into a prison, because it took me years and years to realize how this impacted me emotionally, before I could get help and healing in that sense, in the way that I needed it.
So, so after you left with your friend and went home to, I guess, your dorm or wherever you were, how was your life then? Your problem was solved supposedly by having the abortion, but was it really solved? What was your life like immediately following that abortion over the next few months or few years?
Oh gosh, it was, I mean, first of all, shame, shame, in the sense of, to me, shame is fear of exposure. So I didn't want anybody to know, but yet at the same time, I was dealing with this inside of myself. And I almost tried to lock it away in a separate place, thinking, no, surely I didn't do that. To think of the reality of what this decision really means. A lot of people who are in favor of abortion, they really try to placate it into this area of, it's a clump of cells. It's not a baby. It's, you have the right to do this. It's your body, but it's not. It's not at all. I didn't see a part of my body on that ultrasound. I saw a complete whole other person on that ultrasound. And who am I to have the right to take that, to take that life? And so to think about that, and the way that impacted me immediately after was immediately I became very angry. I didn't really understand why. I didn't know how to process through that. And then there was the shame with it. So I tried to numb it. I didn't get heavy into drugs or anything like that, but I partied and drank a lot. I was in college, so it's kind of what's expected and so forth, with your peers. But I began to numb the pain, and it changed who I was, in my opinion. It absolutely did.
And then eventually, thanks be to God, you did go to an abortion recovery program, and you were later married. But then let's just zero in on now you want to be a mom, you want to have children, but because of damage done to you during that abortion, you had trouble conceiving. And then when you did, holding the pregnancy, right?
Correct. 3 times. So I didn't really, obviously, after the abortion took place, I was on birth control for a series of years. So I was 18. I got married at the age of 27. So I got off of birth control soon before that, but not very. I'm sorry, soon before that, but it wasn't long before I got married, is what I'm trying to say. So I never even knew that there was a problem. And so whenever I got married, my husband and I, at a certain point, we weren't trying, so to speak, but we weren't preventing, just kind of whenever God, has this to happen for us, it'll happen. And so not long after that, I got pregnant, and I miscarried at like 8 or 9 weeks. And it's pretty common, the first time people get pregnant for that to happen. So I didn't think as much of it. Then it happened a second time. And I was like, okay, this is weird, and it was the same exact time frame. So then a third time, and I said, okay, something's going on. And so I didn't really get any answers from my regular OBGYN, just because obviously they see that. They're kind of desensitized to knowing that it happens, even though obviously it's traumatic for the parents. So I said, I think I'm going to go and see a fertility specialist just to make sure there's not an issue. Well, when I did, they did a particular type of imaging study, and they could tell that I had a uterine septum is what it's called. But basically it's where instead of your uterus is shaped, like this, like more oval in a sense, it's shaped more like a heart. So the part that's right there in the middle, right here, that was nothing but scar tissue. So when I would get pregnant, the baby would come and attach there. Well, that scar tissue is exactly where the cannula, when it's aggressively done and it's not in a controlled environment, like in an OR with D&C or miscarriage, type of issue. When it's aggressive, it can absolutely damage and injure, and then therefore cause scarring to that top portion of your uterus. So that's what happened to me. So I had to have a surgical procedure done in order to remove that septum so that I could bear children successfully.
Wow. So thank God. And then you had, children. You have what, 2 children, right?
I have 2. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So thanks be to God. But see, that story, actually is so common, as you know, from Silent No More. We hear a lot of women who've had damage, and some of them were never able to conceive a child ever again. The only child they were able to conceive was the child they aborted. In your case, thanks be to God, they were able to fix the problem. So now you've gone through healing, you speak for Silent No More, but right now in this election cycle, in a lot of the states, as you know, there's these ballot initiatives that want to enshrine abortion in the state constitution till birth. If you just had 30 seconds or so to say to people why they should vote no with these ballot initiatives because of your experience as a woman who's had an abortion, what would you say to them?
I would say that, we've become so desensitized to abortion these days that we don't really understand the repercussions of it. The thing is we think of it as just a choice, but it's so much more than that. It's actually ending a life. It's ending a life, and the effects after that on the mother, not just the mother, but the father of this child, they are so lasting and so impactful. We take this with such a grain of salt, like it's not a big deal, but I'm here to tell you from my personal experience, this led to years and years of torment. It led to years of sadness and anger and grieving. And I would just say, this is not something that we need to use as a ploy to try and get votes. It's so much more intense than that. It's a matter of life and death. It truly is. And life is such a gift. It's really such a precious gift. And I'm so thankful that my mother gave me that option. And I think that any of our children would be grateful and thankful to have that same thing. So I would just say, please, consider what this actually means whenever you are commercializing, having the choice to commit murder is what it is.
Well, actually, what can I say? But thank you so much for your testimony. Thank you for sharing with us and showing what abortion really is. So thank you for joining me today. Well, brothers and sisters, I hope you learned something by this program and understand that these ballot initiatives in these states will enshrine abortion in state constitutions for all 9 months of pregnancy. So please help people decide to vote no on these ballot initiatives. Remember, there are some abortions only you can stop, and therefore some lives only you can save. Thank you, and God bless.